How artworks tell stories of our past. As you know, they don't have voices to speak. More precisely, they are silent witnesses of the past. So how can we make them speak or tell these stories? This is where science and technology come in. Today we are here in the Indra and Harry Banga Gallery of the City University of Hong Kong, and this is to show how science and technology can help to let artwork speak about the past. My name is Astrid Harth and I'm an assistant professor of technical art history and heritage science at City University of Hong Kong. And my research lab focuses on using science and technology to tell the untold stories of art. How can science and technology help with telling these stories? The answer to this question lies in the fact that artworks are composed of organic and inorganic materials. For example, these portraits of Qing bannerman officials contain organic materials such as the silk support on which they are painted, but also the carbon black inks used for the poetry hole. Besides that, they also consist of inorganic materials, such as, for instance, the bright blue garment of this bannerman official is painted with the copper-based pigment azurite. These materials can be identified by using technology, which employs electromagnetic radiation. There are different types of electromagnetic radiation. The different types or full range of radiation you can see here in this schematic overview, which is called the electromagnetic spectrum. The type of radiation we are all well familiar with is the visible light, which we use to see. But also we know X-rays, which doctors use to make images of the inside of our bodies. For the scientific study of art, known as technical research, researchers make use as well of the visible light and X-rays, but also of ultraviolet radiation and infrared radiation. Similar as with X-ray imaging of the human body, researchers will irradiate the surface of an artwork or part of it with one type of radiation. This process of irradiation will result in different types of interactions between the radiation and the artwork. And it is these resulting interactions that we researchers want to measure. Why? Because it allows us to identify the materials present in artworks, to look beneath their surface, but also to study the techniques utilized by artists and craftsmen to create artworks in the past. Now, how can we do that? We have technology to measure or to capture the interaction between the irradiation and the artwork. This interaction can be captured in the form of an image, remember the example of an X-ray image, or in the form of a spectrum. Here we have a great example of such technology. This is the scanning electron microscope with energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, or short SEM-EDX, which is used by my colleagues of the Department of Material Science. The scanning electron microscope can be used for small artistic objects or tiny samples collected from artworks. The SEM-EDX microscope uses a focus beam of high-energy electrons and X-rays and generates high-resolution images of the surface topography of an artwork, like, for example, this 19th century dagger. At the same time, this instrument provides detailed information about the chemical composition of this dagger in the form of a spectrum. As such, we know that this exquisite ceremonial weapon is made by steel and gold. Another example of such technology is hyperspectral imaging, for which we use a compact camera, such as this one, which looks very similar as a regular photo camera. With this technological tool, we can collect images of artworks across the electromagnetic spectrum, that is, from the UV, across the visible to the infrared range. I used this technique to study, for example, a couple of these portraits of Qing Dynasty bannerman officials from the R&J collection. The imaging technique mainly yielded new information about the mineral pigments and dyes present in these ancient portraits. I discovered as such that the modern European pigment like Prussian blue, was used for their creation. Probably this pigment was brought to the Qing court by the Jesuit missionary painters such as Giuseppe Castiglione. This was probably done around the mid-17th century, before a formal trade of the pigment was established between Europe and Canton. Hence, this type of research also allows us to tell stories about past networks of artistic exchange and trade routes between Europe and Asia. Now, what does the future hold for the scientific study of artworks? Fast development of technology, including advancements in AI, is opening a plethora of new possibilities to look even further beneath the surface of artworks. But remember that in addition to technology, we need people for this type of research. People who can bring together art, science, and technology to discover more and more untold stories about our past. If you are an art student, an art lover, art collector, or scientist, I encourage you to take an interest in this promising field of study. And above all, let us tell these untold stories of art together.